Ready.
Great. Call the December 3, 2025 Clark County Clean Water Commission meeting to order. And our first order of business is to welcome our new members. I think we have one new member here.
Yeah.
Do we have the other new member online or is he available?
He has not yet joined. There you go.
Well, Don, why don't we have you introduce yourself and give us a little bio of your experience and work history and interest in clean water.
So I'm Don Hottenroth. I was, as Devin likes to call me, a policy wonk for the City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services for 23 years. I was one of 4 people that built and ran our phase 1 permit program. And I got the lovely job of herding the cats in the other 26 city bureaus. So I have a lot of expertise in stormwater management. Of course, I was project manager on probably 15 or 20 stormwater management facilities that we built using EPA grant funds. I wrote our erosion control code and 2 of the erosion control manuals. I co-wrote 1, 2, 3, 4 of the stormwater management manuals, including our first one, which was a technical guidance handbook versus an actual regulatory manual. And I really spent quite a bit of my career crawling around city codes, trying to remove things like the building code that said, hey, every drainage ditch. So I spent quite a bit of time our various parts of city code, and I don't know if you are familiar, but City of Portland has their city code literally is about 2.5 feet tall. It's 95% of the regulations are written for 3% of the people. So it's kind of crazy. So that's me. I retired from them in 2015 because I moved to San Diego to take care of some elder parents. And while down there, I worked for a consultant working on Navy properties and their stormwater management permits. And I managed to get 8 people doing that for about 7 or 8 years before I moved back up here in 2021. And I've been here renovating a house ever since. That's me.
And what do you do for fun? Do you want to share anything else about it?
I'm a bird watcher. I love to bird watch. I love to hike. I love to, I volunteer at the food bank. I do a lot of card playing at the senior center with all my 8-year-old friends. And that's pretty much keeps me pretty busy. So. Awesome.
We don't have our second commissioner online.
Correct.
No, we don't.
Okay, well, then let's proceed to roll call.
Tracy Charavallo. Here. John Chappelle.
Here.
Glenda Willie.
Yep.
Ted Gaithy.
Here.
Emily Hess. Here. Don Hottenroth. Here. Tommy Miller. Not present. Rudy Salacori.
Here.
Allison Schweitzer.
Present.
And since we have our new member, do we want to maybe do just a quick little bit about everyone?
Sure.
Just, I read your bios. All I thought it was, they picked me.
So you know everyone already.
Yeah, I read all the bios. I was very impressed actually with the caliber of people.
Okay, well, we can skip that and move on to approval of the October 1, 2025 meeting summary.
I'll move to approve that.
Let me ask if there's any corrections, additions, changes, or comments on it. Okay. Tracy's moved. Is there a second? 2. I'll second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We introduce our guest as well.
Who is our guest? Yeah, probably didn't.
Cornell to Dan Clark, our new wastewater treatment.
Oh. Do you want to come off and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dan Clark. I'm currently the commissioner-elect for Clark Regional Wastewater District. And so I mainly am looking for partners to do some things that I have in mind for the next 6 years. And I recently attended your symposium and was interested in thinking that there are some partners out there that haven't been working together, and hopefully we can do something together. And fund some things that need to be taken care of, particularly along the lines of septic elimination. I think we can work together and do that and be successful with that over a period of time. As of right now, of course, I'm only talking from a interested citizen standpoint, since I am not in my official capacity yet until January 1st.
Dan, I met you at that symposium and good to see you virtually attending.
Yeah.
That was-
And Dan, you have a great email.
Yes,
Is
Have a
it
what
TikTok?
now?
You have a great email.
Oh yeah, that draws me both scorn and praise. So
What is it? It's
Top third.
top turd.
top turd at Comcast.net. I've had it for over 30 years. So
Fun.
and Dawn may remember me. I was the wastewater treatment manager at the city of Portland, Oregon for
Ever.
20 of the 35 years I worked there.
I did. Long time no see.
So Dan, it might be interesting to have a field trip at some point and see what Clark Regional is up to. And I know you're running the former county wastewater treatment plant now. It'd be interesting to have some of our commissioners see Clark Regional's work.
That'd be great. And I'm sure that we can arrange that through our general manager, John Peterson, would be glad to do that. He's a great guy and does really excellent tours.
Great. Alice, are there any other public comments? People online?
No.
Anyone else?
Did not receive any other public comments.
All right, let's move to the business part of the meeting. First item is the Clean Water Code and Manual Update presentation.
Uh-oh, all right.
Rod's starting it off with a bang.
All right, I gotta get to it. Oh, I guess I'll introduce you. So we're very excited to have our consultant team, OTEC, here today. Trista K. Kobleski here, who's been leading our Clark County Stormwater Code Manual Update, which is needs to be adopted by June of 2026. So we've been underway since late 2024.
Late 2024.
And we are at, we're at the juncture of this being our last real opportunity for input from the Clean Water Commission, the Development Engineering and Advisory Board. And so we're kicking off our final public input and adoption phase. And I do want to quickly introduce Rod Swanson as well. If you haven't had a chance to meet Rod, Rod is our stormwater policy lead, but has been our permit manager since the beginning of time. Stormwater time.
Yeah.
So Trista will be our giving a presentation. Trista also used to work for Clean Water 10 years ago ish.
Yeah, Rod hired me in 2004.
And now she's back working for us as a consultant. So, very excited to have Trista on board.
Thank you. Okay, so next slide, please. We're gonna do a project overview. We are updating the Clark County Stormwater Manual and the related codes mostly in Title 40, but also Chapter 1326A. We'll talk about what we had to submit to ecology. Sure. Oh, that's okay. Other changes that we'll be making to the manual and codes that were not submitted to ecology. Talk about our training and guidance that's upcoming. Some other code updates for water quality, the illicit discharge prohibition, and then talk about the next steps.
Sorry to already throw you off. Can you take a step back and maybe share what the code means for those who we have some different levels of
I just
understanding.
jumped in.
Sorry.
That's okay. I think the next slide actually will
Go over that.
go
Sorry.
over that. That's okay. So the Clark County Stormwater Manual has been in existence since there was a version in 2009, which was slightly different than this. In 2015, the first standalone Clark County Stormwater Manual was adopted, and it is an engineering guidance manual, essentially. So if you develop or redevelop property in Clark County, you need to control your stormwater, and the manual tells you how. And then there's, some of the threshold language and stuff like that is in code, but mostly the manual is where you would go to find what to do. So the manual was updated in 2021 through an internal effort, and that is the current version that has been adopted. And Ecology every 5 years or so updates their phase 1 municipal stormwater permit that it issues to Clark County. And in that update of the permit, they always require an update for the engineering standards as well. So we are responding to that requirement in the latest phase 1 permit to update the stormwater engineering standards. So we are looking at Appendix 1 of the permit, which is where the applicability thresholds and minimum requirements are described. Appendix 10 of this particular permit has a set of 7 items that are mandated for Clark County to update in order to remain equivalent to the stormwater management manual for Western Washington and phase 1 of the permit. And we'll look at those more closely. So this is just an intro. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And again, we'll be looking at the manual, we'll be looking at code. We will also be incorporating requests and comments from manual users, and that's staff, the Development and Engineering Advisory Board, and other folks in the community who might use the manual reason to have, had comments on it over the last few years. Do you think that was enough of background? Just shout out if more background.
I would just say we're the keeper of the manual, and then the manual is implemented by community development. So when somebody comes in with a project proposal and it's being evaluated through the permitting process, community development is using the manual as their North Star for determining what can be built. So we don't implement it, we just keep it.
And I'd also mention that Western Washington are coming by call basically the science for magic stormwater. So the county has to have an equivalent manual.
Someone in Bellingham could use the Clark manual.
Yeah, Camas uses it. I think Camas uses it.
I think they're using the.
Ah, okay,
That's pretty common.
okay.
So can I ask one kind of history question? What kind of other entities have you coordinated with in the manual development so far, like vector control, native plant society type people? Are you just basing it off of the input that's gone into the Western Washington, or have you done some local kind of stuff over?
From my perspective, for development projects, source component development projects.
Right.
And basically, the state manual was an input. Yeah.
So with the commission and then the Development Engineering Advisory Board has folks from the building industry, but the organization that you mentioned, we haven't directly engaged with. And
Yeah.
so happy to hear more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it later, but
Yours might not.
it's not.
Thank you,
Because
Allison.
It's just, I know we've had a lot of issues with the manual in Portland because of the vector control, mosquito breeding issues. I think most of that has been dealt with, but over time, because the science has gotten to the point where the designs now don't kind of have standing water quite as long. So, but it is sometimes a group that likes to be tapped. So you might think about those kind of entities.
And one other housekeeping thing, Trisha has so much to get through and it's so dense that if we could keep questions till the end, otherwise we'll be talking about this probably for 4 hours. So I forgot to mention that.
That's okay.
And then just so everybody knows, if you just make sure that the light is on, the little green light. If it's on, then your microphone's working. You have it on.
I can't do it.
I'll come help.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Oh, oops. Well, the next slide is stuff I already mentioned. So everybody has it. Oh, and you all have it. So the next slide is again, project overview. This is just a list of the actual, every code chapter, and it gives you a little idea. Rod kind of mentioned it, but the Quack County Stormwater Manual has 4 books. Book, might as well describe it since we're here. Book 1 is applicability and threshold. So when do you have to do stormwater management for a development or redevelopment project, and how much? So there's sort of 2 levels. There's what we might call a small project level and then a larger project level. Those aren't that's colloquial. That terminology is not used in the manual, but that's kind of the way to think about it. So in book 1, you just figure out what you have to do and how to select your project size and your BMPs. Book 2 is the design manual. So just how to design each of the different facilities for water quality, flow control, low impact development. Book 3 is a source control manual. So for those developments or redevelopments that have a commercial or an industrial land use, they may need to incorporate some source control best management practices in their site plan. And then book 4 is the operation and maintenance manual. So all the stormwater facilities that get constructed need to be maintained through their lifetime, and that book 4 describes what that is. And then we are also updating Clark County Code 1326A, that is water quality. Title 40, Chapter 100, which is definitions. The big one is Title 40, Chapter 386, Stormwater and Erosion Control, although there aren't many changes in it, to be honest. And then also Title 40, Chapter 500, which is procedures. There really aren't a lot of code updates. So the majority of the updates are in books 1 and book 2 of them. Okay, next slide, please. Let's just talk about the process a little bit more. There's been, well, that didn't reproduce very well. Sorry, everybody. Wow. There's some overlap of text there. There has been a couple different streams of information that we are attempting to incorporate in one manual update. So the first one on the top left is the mandatory or mandated changes from Department of Ecology. So I mentioned those earlier. There are 7 items that in order to maintain equivalence with the Western Washington Manual, we have to incorporate in the Clark County Stormwater Code. And then another stream that we are looking at is the community requested changes. And we had to divide them up a bit because we had an early ecology review. So we took a look at more than 100 changes requested by manual users. Again, that includes staff, development engineers, members of the Development and Advisory Board, anyone else who had given a comment to Clean Water in the intervening years since the 2021 manual was published. We needed to take a look at those and identify which ones of those changes would be considered significant, because ecology needed to review our proposed updates for the 7 mandated changes and anything else that would be considered significant. So we developed a definition of significance, and it is any change to the manual that disallows the use of any stormwater facility or BMP that's allowed in the Western Washington Manual, changes a threshold or applicability of the minimum requirements, changes a minimum requirement, or would change the code and manual in terms of ACART. And that's, you may or may not be familiar with that term. It means all known, and I have to read it because it's long. available and reasonable methods of prevention, control, and treatment of stormwater discharges.
Mm.
So, I have to read it.
Like best engineering,
Yes, yeah. If we are
best
and
technology.
part of the phase one permit and the law in Washington requires the county to use a cart when regulating stormwater. So if we are going to change that would be a significant change. So those two streams had to get reviewed by ecology. We submitted that for them to review in June, and they are giving us their feedback in a couple of weeks. So there's a meeting
December 16th.
on December 16th. So we'll finally hear how they felt about what was submitted in June. And then another stream, so we'll move on to the brown circle there. Another stream of information is technical changes to the Western Washington. Sorry, that's what's overlapped and you can't. So there are lots of other changes to the Western Washington manual that ecology made. They published that manual. They made a lot of technical changes, but they didn't require Clark County to adopt them. But we wanted to stay abreast. So we reviewed and have incorporated those into a draft. And then, excuse me, we will combine those with the changes that ecology reviewed. And then any other of that list of requested changes by manual users that didn't meet that threshold of being significant. So all of those streams will get combined into a public review draft that will be out for review this winter. And then the second part of the process is we'll put that out for public review. We will respond to public comments, make any last changes, and then it will go through a legislative review process, and that will include Planning Commission as well as City Council. So we'll have we're going to have actually an early City Council workshop in January, and then after the public comment period, we will have another City Council workshop. County. Sorry,
Okay.
County Council. Oh my gosh.
No worries.
County Council.
Just clarifying.
Yes,
We don't
yeah.
have to go through a city
No.
process.
Nope. County Council, Planning Commission, another County Council, and then adoption is the last one. So there will be a several month legislative review process before it gets adopted, and it needs to be effective on July 1, 2026.
And we also have to put it out for SEPA,
Hmm.
and any changes to Title 40 have to go to Department.
Correct.
So
So
a lot, very,
Yeah, there's actually a slightly more detailed schedule in the next slide. It might be a little bit too detailed, but yeah, some of those other reviews are. So we are in the winter 2025 to 2026, where we are finishing up our draft. And then the winter to summer 2026, we're going to take it to clean. Part of that is this Clean Water Commission. We're going to take it to DEEB again, and then the internal team for the county staff is called CATS. So we'll show it to the county staff. Sorry, DEEB is that apology. Sorry, DEEB is Development and Engineering Advisory Board. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. I was saying it in full. Then I switched to the acronym. And in fact, we'll be meeting with them tomorrow. So if you want to hear this again. And we have been talking to DEEB several times throughout this. They're really integral partners in this. So they've heard most of our proposals already. Okay. So I wanted to go through the changes that we submitted to ecology in a little more detail. It's not exhaustive, but just in a little more detail. So again, these were itemized in Appendix 10 of the permit. And so because it is in the permit, it's quite important for the county to comply. And then, as I mentioned before, we also had those more than 100 requests from manual users. And we applied that definition of what is significant. And we submitted this to Ecology in June, and we'll get our comments in December. So let's take a look at the 7 slide, these 7 items that we were mandated, or Clark County is mandated to update. The first item is the thresholds for when a redevelopment project has to apply stormwater management on their site. And the changes were to road-related projects and commercial or industrial projects. And they were minor changes. There's not a wholesale change in how stormwater management is applied to these sites. These were pretty small changes. Secondly, a few clarifications in project exemptions. So some types of projects are exempt from having to apply stormwater management, which makes sense. And Ecology wanted to clarify in ways that would prevent project applicants from sort of getting around those exemptions or using those exemptions more liberally than Ecology really wanted them. So this is sort of ratcheting down the use of exemptions. Not any wholesale changes, again, just clarifications. The third is definitions related to the minimum requirements. This is sort of throughout. So there are a few, again, it's clarifications. These are not wholesale changes. Number 4 is how to protect wetlands when they are incorporated or receive outflow from a stormwater management facility. So there's an appendix for how to do that, and there's just a minor change in how to model or the thresholds for how you can change the hydro period in a wetland. And then number 5 is the runoff treatment performance goal thresholds. So the larger projects to meet a water quality requirement. There's just some, I would say, minor changes to how the metals treatment threshold is applied. And there are some new types of land uses that Ecology wants specified that have to apply treatment. And that is light rail guideways for the most part. And that is actually probably related mostly to things that are happening in King County. But it's a statewide manual. So a lot of times King County focused things end up in this manual. We can always hope. I'm sorry, we can always hope that we would have light. It's in the plan. For source control, the 6th item, there are some new best management practices and some new language relating to PCB. So this is an emerging contaminant of concern. Buildings from the 1950s to the 1980s contained a lot of PCB containing materials. And so demolition of those buildings, even maintenance or operation of those buildings can release PCB into the environment. So Ecology is looking for more source controls around PCB. And then finally, this is probably the one that will have the most effect, which is there is a third option now for the type of soil mix that you can use in a bioretention facility. So there's a high performance bioretention soil mix. There's about 2 pages of specifications about this. The very useful thing about this soil mix is that you can use it near a phosphorus sensitive water body, which normally you have to remain 1/4 of a mile away from a phosphorus sensitive water body, which is most lakes, with bioretention, because bioretention can export phosphorus. So you don't want it to be close to a lake and exacerbate that problem. But this soil mix does not export phosphorus, and there is a version of it that can actually be used as phosphorus treatment. So even if you have a phosphorus producing land use, you can run that stormwater through a bioretention facility that has the high performance bioretention soil mix, and it should remove the phosphorus. So that's exciting because the county is going to require phosphorus now in the entire Lake River watershed. So that extends up past Battleground, and it's a pretty big portion of the county. So those are the mandated changes. And then I already talked about these, but I meant to just go over them all quickly and then only talk about a few of the notes. So I already talked about these. And then of that list that we reviewed from manual users, the ones that we considered significant, there were only about 10 of them that we considered significant. And these are the four that I wanted to share with you. We are asking applicants to do more soil testing where they are proposing downspout infiltration facilities. They have been doing 4-foot soils logs, and we're going to ask them to do 10-foot soils logs. And the reason for that is that some applicants may be finding the use of dry well downspout dry wells, infeasible, while only doing kind of shallow soil testing. We'd like them to look a bit deeper before they find it infeasible to use that infiltration practice as the kind of first line of defense for how to manage downspout runoff from downspout.
Is there a design storm that goes against that as well? That's coupled with that? Like you gotta be able to infiltrate a 50-year event, or like
what they're looking for is the downspout dry wells
right.
are managing only roof runoff only, so it's non-polluting, and then it's generally a small amount. So each downspout dry well can only manage of several hundred square feet of roof. I can't remember the exact threshold. I would have to get back to. And there is a design storm, but what they're looking for in the soils log is the soil texture, and so they're not actually doing an infiltration test necessarily. And then they're translating that into an infiltration rate and sizing.
So maybe I could have something there.
Yes, of course.
The goal of ecology and a stormwater management program and the permit to try to mimic the hydrology of the forest. And the only way you can do that is to infiltrate a lot of water. And so anything we can put in the ground helps us get to that goal of having extreme hydrology that is close to that of the forest. And the only way you can do that is to infiltrate everything up to 1/2 of a 2-year storm.
Yeah.
And everything
Oh,
else.
okay.
So asphalt shingles are considered non-polluting?
Yeah. By ecology definition.
Metal roofing can be.
If it's zinc or if it's getting
But quote unquote, what I had remembered was they say because it's in the ground layer, it's not on the surface layer, it's not as bioavailable for things to interact with those pollutants because you're underground. And that a lot of metals don't tend to move in groundwater. So that's why they think it's like no big deal.
So the soil testing is looking at retention?
It's looking at the capability of the soil to infiltrate runoff.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically,
To sponge it up.
Sponge it up. Yeah. What ecology's goal and Clark County's goal is for that to be used more often, as often as possible.
You're gonna possibly, because you're going deeper, run into more groundwater levels that when prohibited, that might allow it now by going to 10 feet.
We'll get the soils log should note if groundwater or evidence of groundwater is encountered. So that would provide more information about whether infiltration is appropriate or not. We are stating more clearly the county policy of preferring infiltration. That's always been true since the adoption of this particular manual, that infiltration is the preferred way to dispose of stormwater, but we're just stating it more clearly now, so it's more obvious. We are clarifying the applicability of the minimum requirements by changing how we are talking about converted vegetation. So this is maybe wonky. So for the project sites that are considered the larger project sites, they have to meet all 1 through 9 minimum requirements, all of the minimum requirements for stormwater. There's a definition about how much vegetation can be converted from even one form of vegetative land cover to another form. So if you go from native or prairie to lawn, that's a land conversion. So there's a threshold about stormwater that's related to those land conversions. We're just clarifying how we're talking about that. But for those who are very wonky and interested in thresholds, that might be one you would look at. And then this one we could discuss further potentially. I have a slide where we can talk about it a little more, but Clark County is proposing to prohibit the use of deep underground injection control wells. So this is sort of on the opposite end of preferring infiltration, but also we need to protect groundwater. So deep underground injection controls, or deep UICs, are a newer form of dry wells, and thank you, that incorporate a drilled shaft below what would be a typical dry well structure, which is a perforated pipe near the surface. It might extend maximum of 20 feet and often not that deep. And the purpose of a dry well is to take a lot of stormwater runoff into it and then discharge it into the ground, down toward groundwater relatively quickly. So it can manage a lot of runoff. But these deep dry wells also incorporate a drilled shaft below that typical dry well structure that could reach 100 feet, let's say. And Clark County has a sole source aquifer and depends on that aquifer for drinking water, many of the communities, all the communities. And so to protect the safety of the aquifer, Clark County would like to disallow the use of these deep dry wells. So we have some existing.
Isn't it a new proposed BMP this year, and we've just chosen not to incorporate it?
There aren't any, sorry.
The allowance of a deep USC, that was new in this manual.
It's new.
So we just chose, nope, we're not adopting it.
Somebody could have done it in the past, but they really tried to get a permit from the college.
So it's a new stormwater facility type it's mentioned for the first time by Ecology in their 2024 Western Washington manual. It prior was not. We said no, thank you.
The purpose of it to increase the flow, limit.
Oh, good question.
Overflow.
It can do that, but the purpose of it is to bypass a restrictive layer. So there are some places where you can't use a dry well because the ground at 10 or 20 feet is not suitable for infiltration. However, that might be a shallow layer that's only maybe it's only 10 feet deep, 20 feet deep, and below it is perfectly permeable soils. Okay. And so the purpose of the drilled shaft is really to bypass, like a well, bypass those impermeable soils and get to a place where groundwater runoff can disperse into the ground. So it means that you could use infiltration in more locations,
which is good. Normally we want infiltration, but this is a groundwater source control mechanism.
If is more commonly used in the Puget Sound region. Outwash geology where there's thick layers of sand and gravel, and there might be a shallow clay layer. And so another thing about the Puget Sound region, most of the area is drinking water, so surface water.
So it may be appropriate there.
So was ecology appreciative of the fact that you said, no, thanks?
We haven't.
We haven't heard yet. We'll
No,
find out in
listen.
2 weeks.
Disagree.
Oh, we got it.
Well, we'll find out in 2 weeks. Yeah. Cross your fingers for us. All right, yeah, that was a great question. Thank you. Okay. So that is essentially what we asked Ecology to review, and we will hear in a couple weeks, you know, how they felt about those things. So now I want to talk about, I'm sorry, it's really hard for me to see the time. Oh, 6:42. Okay, so we have an hour, so we have about 15 minutes left. So I will try to move through this. The whole set of other updates that we've been working on since we did that ecology, submitted those changes to ecology in June. I just want to go over some of the notable ones that you might want to look out for. We are proposing to remove the alternative flow control standard for the Mill Creek Basin. And maybe I should, yes, okay, who knows? Is flow control a familiar concept to folks?
No.
Okay. Flow control means we want the stormwater runoff increases the rate, volume, and duration of flows that reach our water bodies, our streams, lakes, rivers. And those increases are damaging. So flow control mitigates or prevents those increases by detaining or retaining, that's infiltration, stormwater, so that it's not hitting streams, rivers, lakes so quickly after a storm and with such volume. So detention ponds are a flow control best management practice. These UICs that we've been talking about, dry wells, they are flow control practices. Bioretention can also act as a flow control if it infiltrates. So we're protecting the physical form of streams through flow control.
And it really is managing volume, so not treating, but slowing down. The flash and hold it. Yeah, flash.
Exactly. Yes. Managing volume. And then ecology allows jurisdictions to have an alternative flow control standard if they study the basin and demonstrate that this alternative flow control standard would be protective of the stream or lake in that basin instead of using the ecology default flow control standard, which is very rigorous. Ecology's default flow control standards are very rigorous, some of the most rigorous in the nation. So if you can prove that an alternative standard is still protective of the resource, then it can make things a bit easier. But not many folks have been using the Mill Creek alternative flow control standard, and I think what were the other reasons for wanting to remove it? Just a sense of fairness and.
I would just say the technology has changed since we adopted it
Okay.
15 years ago. Back then, we weren't looking at LID being mandatory, infiltrating the smaller flows. And we did some analysis in one of the catchments in Mill Creek a few years ago, a hydrologic study with modeling. And what we found is that the current forested standard doesn't prevent the duration of worsened flows to increase in that creek where we can't use much LID because the soils are clay, so having a lesser standard probably wasn't a good idea. So the alternative flow control standard is basically 2002 land cover as pasture and forest, and the default would be normally it would be forest for everything, and so it's a less rigorous, less strong standard. So we're going back to the forested standard.
So in Mill Creek, which is kind of out near WSU, and you see a lot of urbanization happening there, you would actually have to detain less stormwater, and we're removing that and saying, nope, you have to detain at the same level. the only area in the county where you could have less detention, build smaller facilities. So it makes development easier and cheaper, but it's not necessarily protective of rivers or good for climate change or getting more intense storms.
Another thing to look out for is some new guidance for designing with a 1/2-inch minimum orifice on flow control facilities. So the orifice is the way flow control facilities reduce the volume or draw out the volume is by the outflow from the facility goes through small holes, orifices, or a weir or something like that. That there has to be a control to
Meter out the water.
meter out the water. Thank you for that. Yeah. And the minimum orifice size is a 1/2 inch. But with the very challenging flow control standards that ecology sets, you might actually, if you do your modeling, come up with 1/4 inch orifices or maybe even smaller to meter out the flow in a slow enough manner to meet the requirements. But those are very difficult to maintain and they result in failures of the facilities. So the new minimum, Clark County has already had a 1/2 inch minimum, but this is just the guidance on what to do if you're having a conflict between your facility size and meeting the flow control standard and having only a 1/2 inch orifice. So it takes the designer through an iterative process to reach a satisfactory, hopefully, conclusion. Okay, another bullet is that Clark County wants to prohibit the use of underground UICs and infiltration facilities for runoff treatment. That is allowed in the Western Washington Manual. Clark County wants to prohibit it because when you use an underground infiltration facility for treatment, so treatment is removing pollutants, very easy for those facilities to clog up and fail. And then they are very difficult to maintain and replace. And so there have been some failures of that nature that the county would like to prevent in the future. It just takes a few options off the table while still providing lots of options for treatment. And then,
The question with this, does this apply to now how we're requiring the pre-treatment for all UICs? Because you would need a treatment if you're using UIC for.
I mean, yes, the two things do work together. So what the county is also planning to require basic treatment, which is a term that Department of Ecology uses for removal of sediment. That's the pollutant of concern in basic treatment. And it's the water quality treatment that's typical throughout the country. Clark County wants to require a basic treatment facility in front of all underground injection controls, which exceeds the state requirement. And again, that is for facility protection. Those underground injection controls can get clogged. They're very difficult to clean, very difficult to replace. There have been some failures of that nature, and the county wants to protect those facilities, protect their investment, and reduce maintenance costs.
How would this affect the use of phosphate cartridges in the facilities there that the county has now installed?
So it's two different things. So with a dry well now going forward, with a dry well, we would require basic treatment or better, and a phosphosorb type is actually better than basic treatment. So phosphorus treatment is a step above. And those are also used to provide treatment in other places than in front of underground injection controls. So there's lots of places where those proprietary filtration cartridges are used. They're in catch basins, they're in vaults.
So it would go through those cartridges and be cleaned before it goes into the UIC, which then goes into our groundwater.
Yeah,
So
that may
it would
be the
be-
BOP they choose to reach that pre-treatment threshold.
And then along those lines, similarly, there's a whole suite of changes that will improve how soil and groundwater investigations are done before design engineers propose infiltration facilities. And again, it's to protect from failures, to make sure we want a lot of infiltration facilities. That is the preference, but we also want them to be sited and designed in a way that makes sure they function and continue to function and are maintainable. So we need just a bit more guidance and few more rules or standards around how the investigations for siting these facilities will go.
We talked about, and this is really related, we have a few facilities where there's groundwater mounding, and so they're not draining, they're just backed up, and there's always water in there that's going up into the pipes, and the neighborhood is reporting flooding. And so that's because maybe it wasn't built big enough, or the groundwater is so high that it's mixing it in with the stormwater volume. So essentially we want to require more rigorous, there's a certain depth that I'll let you speak to it, you're the expert, but for groundwater mount, it's related to
ground, yes. So there will be a change to when groundwater mounding analysis is required, and a groundwater mound occurs under an infiltration facility. Basically means if the groundwater literally mounds up, and it might touch the bottom of the infiltration facility and then prevent the facility from functioning. So there was a prior threshold if the information available to the designer indicated that the groundwater was within 15 feet of the bottom of an infiltration facility, they'd have to do a groundwater mounding analysis, which is a modeling exercise. And we are reducing that threshold for larger infiltration facilities if there is evidence that the groundwater is within 5 feet of the bottom of the facility. They have to do mounting analysis.
Remembered.
yeah. We're really excited about this. We
So it
have a
means
lot
less mounting
Yeah,
analyses?
more.
But if you're going now, you're within 5 feet before if you were.
If it was at 15, then now there's 10 feet difference. So if it's at 5 feet, no, it's
You're right.
15.
I said it backwards. Yeah, you're exactly right. I said it backwards.
Which is great, because if you've heard of like our Filbert Farm project, for example,
playground.
prime example, we have a playground with an underground facility that the playground's just flooded all the time. It's underwater, and it's because groundwater mounting, and so we want to avoid those situations.
So if you
So
could
we're using
imagine
lessons learned.
a field of 10 acres of grass, the rain falls on the grass that soaks in the ground everywhere. Then you build a subdivision on it, 10 acres, you got roads, all that stuff, and all that runoff goes into the stream, into one lot where there's a bunch of dry wells or something. All that water goes to one point, it piles up there underground.
All right, and then another one notable technical change I wanted to talk about is the county wants to improve the guidance for designing outfalls and energy dissipators, and also provide a little bit more restriction on siting outfalls at the top of steep slopes. And this is for environmental protection, also for maintainability, and this is just an example of a new illustrative drawing that may be in the manual that illustrates an engineered energy dissipator that you might find at the end of an outfall pipe, especially one that has high volume, high energy. So the current Clark County Stormwater Manual has very little information about the design of energy dissipators. And we've found that the community is not going outside the manual to design energy dissipation. So we're just providing more information in the manual. And again, requiring outfalls not to be located at the top of steep slopes, which we observed recently. And we're like, we need to change that. Just a lot of water coming out of the top of the slope and eroding. So I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So to build a facility or an outfall like this, they would have to get a habitat permit to go through the riparian area. River. And so that's why they put the outfall
At
at
the
the top of the hill.
Yeah, and just let it go.
Not
Yes.
good.
It's yeah, and that's can cause problems with slope stability, and it's clearly not good. So, all right, and some other notable changes, and I know we're running out of time, so
We started about a little late.
okay, all right. There, we want to do a little bit more to manage which types of stormwater facilities can be placed on private residential lots in subdivisions. Because of the prominence of LID, low impact development, and how many developments are triggering the large stormwater management facility requirements, the full suite of minimum requirements. Some residential lots have ended up with engineered stormwater facilities that provide treatment on those individual residential lots. Then there's difficulty in understanding who's responsible for maintaining it. Not really an appropriate type of thing for a regular homeowner to maintain. It's not fair to them. It also doesn't necessarily work environmentally. If it's not being maintained, it stops working. So we just want to provide a little more clarity about what types of stormwater facilities are allowed on private residential lots, especially in the urban area where lot sizes are smaller, the homes are going up to the setbacks and things like that. So there's some clarity in our proposed updates for that. Some more clarifications about compost amended vegetated filter strips and media filter drains. They have been proposed to be used for flow control in Clark County by applicants. And sometimes it has slipped through, though they're not flow control best management practices. They are treatment best management practices. So we're just providing some additional clarity around that. And then there are new best management practices. One is an infiltration swale. It's kind of nice. It comes from the Eastern Washington Manual, but it could be useful in Clark County. And then there are two new dispersion BMPs, and one is specific for light rail, and it's kind of interesting. So we are adding those. And I will gloss over this a bit, but we are in the course of talking to the community, the users of the manual, then identifying where do folks need training? Where are they telling us we don't think we can do X, Y, or Z, and when actually there is X, Y, or Z in the manual. So it seems to be a training issue. So we're just been noting those things, and as well noting where we are making changes that might need to be explained. So once the manual is adopted and in effect on July 1, 2026, then we're going to go back and do some training for staff.
I would just add training is top priority. We just got our budget approved yesterday. We received a budget allocation for training development. So we're talking about training people who are designing things in the private community, training inspectors who are inspecting, training our internal development review engineers on what they need to be looking for. And so holistic, trying to make sure people know what they're building, what they're looking for when they're reviewing building plans, and then when things are built, what they should be looking for when they're on that site. Like, yeah, I'm really stoked about that.
Yeah, that should get everyone rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, maybe it's more towards the end. I should let you finish because it's more about it, the ultimate feedback loop in terms of what we're seeing in the stream. But finish your presentation, then I'm going to get that.
Okay, sounds good. I will also very briefly talk about this. This is updates to the prohibitions for illicit discharges. This is actually not due until 2027, but I think Clark County is going to adopt it a year early. We're just wrapping it in. No big changes, but some changes to how lawn watering is allowed to be discharged to a stormwater system. We have a little bit of change to what you have to do to swimming pool, spa, and tub water before you can discharge it to a stormwater system. And again, back to that PCB issue. just more BMPs or more prohibitions, I should say, for washing down your building and discharging PCBs into the storm system. So those allowable non-stormwater discharges and the conditions around them will be updated at the same time as the stormwater. There anything at PFAS in there too? There is not.
So I assume the enforceable document is the code, or is it the manual?
For that one, for that one, it's the code 1326.
That's what I thought.
I mean, the best management practices that are in the Western Washington and those that are mandated to be updated are in. So those are the implementing elements, but the prohibition is in code.
The manual's not in, it's,
And that is true, yeah, in Clark County. So what are our next steps? We are offering Clean Water Commission, DEEB,
Did you? Nope, we can't hear you.
Alice is muted right now, but I don't think you were muted earlier when we couldn't hear you. But if you want to unmute, you can try again.
a chance for them to weigh in. They don't have any approval authority. It's an advisory.
Hey, you
board.
exist. How about that?
Yeah,
Very good.
and wastewater district and real estate. So it's, thank you, Rudy.
Okay. All right.
Also, we paid the bills, right? They didn't make the budget, right?
Sorry, we had a Wi-Fi outage.
Okay. We are just gonna start where we left off, which is talking about the next steps for the Clark County Stormwater Code and Manual update. And I was just saying that in December, it should be coming out next week. There will be a special public review period for Clean Water Commission, DEEB, and the county staff who've been kind of working with us all along. And then we will be preparing for the council work session in January, where we will ask for council's, it will be a lot less detailed than this. We'll be asking them for their direction and letting them know the direction that we're taking few of these key issues. And then the formal, we'll be taking, that input from that special review period and any input direction we get from council and creating our final first drafts. So the formal public review of the drafts will begin in March. We'll be talking to Planning Commission in April and May. We will be talking to County Council in May and June, and then adoption in June and effective date of July. Items. We talked about reform.
So the work session for council is tentatively scheduled for January 14th. And then one other thing I'll add is Trista this project took a lot more than we originally scoped. And so we're requesting an amendment from council to add some more budget because we're not only doing involvement with Clean Water Commission, DEEP, Planning Commission, and council. We've had the internal CATS group, the County Action Team on Stormwater, where we're working directly with development engineering review and construction inspection staff. So there's been a lot of unanticipated